So, in the 4 days since the last time I recorded, I've gone to this Cincinnati trans group thing. I'm not sure if I fit in, um, but I went, and, yeah, it was a thing that happened. I'm not sure how much I got out of it, but I've never really gotten much out of group stuff. Other people need to get more, like, venting abilities and support from other human beings and stuff than I do for some reason. In general, I realize there's other introverts in the world or whatever, but I'm just saying most people I meet need a lot more, like, I don't know, stuff like that. Um, I don't know. I'm still part of it or whatever. My therapist wants me to join the local one, which I don't know anyone for, but since, COVID-19's happening right now and it's all video chats and shit anyway. I'm not doing that today though. Signing up for that or whatever. I came out to my best friend yesterday about the whole thing about possibly being trans and stuff, and she reacted pretty much how I thought she was gonna react and everything. She's been supportive and everything, and it's made her think about things. We've always sort of kept pace with each other in life, and we know each other really, really well. Like, we understand how each other thinks very closely, which is interesting because, my best friend lives in Singapore. We've never actually met in real life, but we're like, siblings or something, like across the ocean. Known each other since 18, and it's like I have a better connection. Most of my friends are international, honestly. I don't have very many friends who are from America. She she said afterwards she was talking to her girlfriend about me and stuff, and changing pronouns was not an issue. Like, it was very natural and smooth to just instinctually say he or him when describing me. And she said, she didn't know if that was telling, but she wanted me to know that it wasn't even something she had to think about. Um, and for someone who knows me that closely, to say that that's helpful, because sometimes I wonder. I get scared. Like, what if I'm wrong? But at the same time, I'm not coming out as, hey, I am FTM about to go get surgery. I'm coming out as, hey, I'm processing whether or not I'm transgender. Um, I've been thinking a lot about, how to come out to my parents and stuff, and my mom, not my birth mother, my mom, she can tell something's up, and then I haven't been saying something, and she gets worried, and she's like, "You seem so sad lately. What's up? Talk to me about it." And I was like, I was gonna wait until, at least after Mother's Day, let you have a fully happy holiday and stuff, because this is something really important for me personally, but it's also something that potentially could sadden you and Dad. And she's like, "I get off work at this time. Let's talk." So, I gave her the option, and she wants to talk today in like an hour and a half. So, I picked out of my menagerie of little videos that I had selected, I picked out which one I'm gonna probably watch with them, and then have a discussion afterwards. They never listen to me. especially my father. My father doesn't listen. So if someone else says it, it usually goes a lot better. I mean, in the end, all that's really going to matter for my dad is what my grandmother would think. Um, I'm not really part of the equation, as far as I can tell, for him almost at all. Once my grandmother says something, up until my grandmother says something, I think he does, think about it and feel like bad. But up until that point, I don't think he's viewing me from as much of a conservative view. He's more viewing me as his kid. And then as soon as opinions, not even, educated opinions, not even factually based opinions, just opinions start coming in, it changes, and it is what it is. I've picked out my name for if I get disowned and if I don't get disowned, so I know once I do tell my parents, then I can tell everyone, and it will be a lot of long talks because as soon as my parents find out, first thing they're gonna do is start calling my siblings. My siblings are gonna start calling everyone, so it's gonna be like this big thing I have to deal with over and over and over again. I have an aunt, um, pretty much my only aunt who actually like talks in my life anymore at all. Um, who also seems to be like my mom and noticing something's up, but I'm like, I can't tell my aunt before I tell my parents. That would be not right. Um, to at least give them the opportunity. I feel like I don't understand just assuming that someone's gonna, you know, treat you like shit. Just give them the chance to maybe prove you wrong. And maybe 80% of the time they will end up treating you like shit. But there's been a couple of times where I thought things were gonna go pretty awful, and it turned out that that person wanted to do better than I had thought that they wanted to do. So, I don't know where I'm going to end up with this whole transitioning thing. I don't know what the results of it are going to be, but I know it's something that I need to process. And even if other people are going to just like write me off, I have to process it. It keeps coming up over and over again in my life. It's not something I can keep shirking away from. And I don't really have time for this. I'm very busy at the moment. I don't have time for big 2 hour long conversations, but oh well. That's sort of how life works, isn't it? When you're not really going to be able to do it, you have to do it. But I needed to record so I could at least say something to myself. I don't know. My therapist says that because of how I grew up, and I grew up with a lot of traumatic issues and situations and shit, that, you know, when I talk about feeling safe, it's usually when I got to visit my dad in the summer. And for 2 months out of a year, I felt safe and cared about. And I always would say, I had so many friends in like college and stuff. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, but once I got out on my own, I started to make some friends. And a very common theme with kids I volunteered with a lot of them, is, abandonment issues about their dads. And my dad, Like, my mother literally kidnapped us. She took us, fled with us, went to court without, convinced the judge that we shouldn't be around my dad. My dad fought tooth and nail to stay in our lives. They offered him money um, to drop the whole thing, and he wouldn't. He got joint custody, and my mother told us that she got custody, and the despicable man that she married adopted us, and that the only reason we got to see my dad was because she allowed it. Um, I had no clue that I could ever go live with my dad, so 2 days after I graduated high school, I left, but I didn't know I could leave before that. She never, ever wanted to let us out of her grasp. And my dad would scrimp and save and work his fingers to the bone all year long so that those 2 months that we got with him, he could take us to go see the Redwood Forest or to Yellowstone or Disneyland or I mean I've been to almost every state in the United States of America and almost every province in Canada because my parents believed in having kids see more than one environment, and almost all of it was us sleeping in the back seat of a car, like we were poor, we couldn't afford much. But still, he made it happen. And the only time I felt safe was when I was with my dad. And it wasn't even the whole time I was with my dad, because my mother would call and write and scream at him. She would just call him just to scream at him. And he would just take it because he didn't want her to make us not see him. My dad's not a perfect man. My dad has done things that have made me outright cry and weep, and he's done things to the world. The way that he votes, his conservative views, it hurts the world. Sometimes the things that he believes in. But he's also my safety blanket. Or at least the closest thing I've ever had to one. If something bad happened, I would know at least there's my dad. I'm trying to figure out how to feel safe. Because I never ever feel safe. And I know that's internal shit. My dad did not come to my wedding because my grandmother would not approve. He flat out told me he didn't think I was going to hell. He's not a perfect man. But he's my only male role model. And he's the only thing that makes me feel safe. Is my dad and my mom. And when I go to their house. Which is so strange because they don't accept anything about my gayness. So you would think I wouldn't feel safe. I would feel just rejected, and I do feel rejected, but it's also complicated. I'm trying to prepare myself to grieve. because there's an 80% chance that I'm going to need to. Because sometimes people surprise you. My therapist thinks that my mom knows and is trying to get me to come out to them about it because at Easter she said, "You'll always be my baby." She didn't say, "You'll always be my baby girl." And she's been saying, "We love you dearly and you're our child." She's not saying you're our daughter. But that might just be because she's happens to not be saying that word. It might not be intentional. I think my parents think something gay is going on. Some LGBT thing is happening, but I don't know that they think it's this. You know, that they have an extra son. I know some of my siblings flat out will never accept it. But I've kind of come to terms with that to a certain degree. I've grieved that. Let it go. I'm having more trouble letting it go about my parents. Like my mom, she tried so hard to make up for my mother. I wrote a list of things I wanted to do before I died when I was like 19, and for the next like 6, 7 years, somehow she remembered a bunch of things from on that list, and she tried to make a bunch of them happen. And she did her best. Like for instance, blacksmithing. For some reason I wanted to blacksmith, so she couldn't get me blacksmithing, but she got me glass blowing, 3,000 degree glass. You know, like my birthday. I always get depressed around my birthday because it was pretty much the terrible time every single year for me. And she started trying to like turn it into family events where we built a memory around my birthday instead of it just being a birthday. We'd all go to the art museum together and everyone in the family had to make me art to keep, or have me put my art up in a museum. Like, she did meaningful things. I had on my list of things to do a hedge maze someday, and so she found a corn maze. Again, they're her attempts at trying to make things happen. And it's not exactly right, but it's really good. It was very thoughtful. We used to fight all the time, my mom and me, because I was used to being the adult and the one raising everyone, and she was trying to be the adult and trying to be the mom who raises everyone. And we fought a lot because it was very hard for me to relinquish being the authority to being the one in charge. And she finally, when I was 18 years old, she and I were fighting and fighting, and she kicked me out of the house. And she said, "Don't you come back until you've gone out and played. Go be a child. You're too young to be this old. Go play. And don't you dare come back until you've played." And I screamed at the door that it was stupid and she was being childish and shit. But eventually I went and did what I watched other kids do. I climbed some trees. I made some mud pies. I put a little daisy on top of the middle. And I came back and I brought it to her. She unlocked the door. She saw it. And she said, "Good. Now make it a habit." I didn't really start to become a child more until I was an adult, which was very strange. So I had almost like this second childhood. And I did play some when I was a kid, when I was younger. I remember when I was like say like 11ish and under. I did play some, quite a bit. And I remember when I was alone in my room, sometimes I would play by myself, but I remember if I played in public, I got in trouble. Honestly, most of the things I wanted to play were boyish. My birth mother punished me for playing. My mom and dad didn't. And I loved to read, and my dad would just, we would go to yard sales, and he'd find a yard sale full of books, and he would haggle and get a really good deal and just say, all right, go get every book you want. And I could just have them all for like next to nothing, and he would just get me all these books. During the 2 months in the summer was the only time of the year I got to dress how I wanted. My dad didn't care if I was a little tomboy. I wonder if he'll think about that today when I talk to them. If he'll feel like he shouldn't have let me just be. I wonder if he'll think he should have been more like my birth mother, which is really disgusting. But sometimes parents think that they could keep their kid from being who they are if they just punished them more or something. I don't know. I have an hour to figure it out.